Okay, so let's try this again. If you're seeing this twice, I apologize. It looks like I forgot, I hit a wrong button and I did not make the last one public. So we're going to try and do this again. And if you're seeing this twice, I do apologize. But let me just see if it's coming through on my phone. Then we'll get ready to get started here. All right. Okay. Well, I know one person is seeing this, so that's a good start. So I know we have we've made this public, so we should be in good job. We should be in good shape now. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. So, today we're going to be talking about randomness. So, if your photos feel inconsistent, it's not because you need better light. It's not because you need better gear. It's because you're letting action replace decision. And action without hierarchy produces randomness. So tonight we're going to be fixing all that permanently. Most photographers don't struggle with terrible images. They struggle with images that just almost work. The light is strong, the subject is interesting, and the exposure is fine, but the frame doesn't feel settled. You look at it and think, I don't hate it, but I didn't mean it to look like this either. That feeling is structural. It's not artistic. It's not sequence. So random doesn't mean ugly necessarily. Random means undecided. And the viewer eye just doesn't know where to go. You need to understand what wins first, what supports it, and what to ignore. So if you don't do those things, the eye wanders. And wandering feels like instability. That instability is what you experience as random. Now today we're doing things a little differently. We're doing things from the Capture by CK studio. And the reason we're doing that is because I want to be able to show you guys some photos. I've got my computer here. So let's pull up the first image. We're gonna go into Lightroom and we're gonna look at a messy frame. So when you look at this frame on the left hand side, you see that you have all these trees on the left, plus you have all this on the left as well. So it's distracting your eye. And that's why I labeled this one a messy frame. You got this boat here, and you got all this water. It was a little windy. The sun was okay, but not great. The skyline was okay, but not great. The buildings, which is what I want to be the subject, aren't centered, so it feels unsettling. Now, we can clean this frame up a little bit. We can wait for the sailboat to move. We can move move some of the palm trees on the left-hand side and some of the rocks on the left-hand side. But still, even in this cleaned up frame, it doesn't look quite the way you think it should. Nothing here is technically wrong on either photo, but nothing leads. Your eyes move without direction. That's not a lighting issue, it's a hierarchy failure. So you know, whoever views this doesn't know where to go. Now the opening feels controlled, but it's not. So what you need to do is you need to decide the skyline's fine, the sunset's good, the foreground has texture, but it's too much. So where does the eye land? It doesn't. It keeps moving. So the foreground competes, the water competes, the buildings compete, bright areas pull attention outward, and energy, the edges leak energy. So there's nothing. It's not that it's a bad photo. It's a frame without hierarchy, and without hierarchy, the viewer feels unstable. So now, when you look at the cleaner version, and I put up another version that I like even better. There's this one where we've centered the building a little bit better, so you have a little bit better idea of what the subject looks like. You have these palm trees, so we didn't cut these off, and we included a lot of the rocks on the shore. Nothing's changed dramatically, but one decision, and that's what we're building tonight. Everything we've discussed over the last several weeks fits into these words: subject, position, and edges. So if you remember that order, not settings, not focal length, not editing, but subject, position, edges, you'll have a very strong photo. But when you reverse that and go edges, position, subject, everything is chaos. And that for sure is not what you want. So, the subject is not what's inside the frame. The subject is what wins. And I think an even better look at how to frame this is here. Even though we cut these palm trees on the left out and you can't see all of them, and you still have a little bit of light on the left hand side, but it kind of goes with the skyline. You have an equal amount of sunset picture and you have an equal amount of water. So that's what makes the subject win first. If I squint at the photo and nothing dominates, then you don't have a good subject. But when you squint at this photo, then you can see that the buildings are your subject. You have content. Hierarchy is what makes a viewer feel guided. Without hierarchy, a frame feels accidental. Now, we can talk about subject dominance to where this is what we're going to go, but look at on the left-hand side, all those rocks. I mean, we clearly have to move. Notice where your eyes land. They don't land on that subject. They land on the rocks. And so you need to either get closer to the rocks and show less of them, or zoom into the building. Before you raise the camera, say, my subject is. So in this particular photo, we're going to say the subject is the building skyline. If you cannot complete that sentence clearly, you're not ready to shoot. So not the skyline, which building? Not the scene, which element? Clarify forces of the hierarchy. One primary rule. Allow one primary subject, at most one supporting element. Everything else must submit. So now we see on the left-hand side, there's nothing dominant there. Even that light blends into the skyline. So it doesn't have to, the subject doesn't have to be the building. The subject can be the skyline, which is what we've done here. And And notice we're not chasing light here. When light becomes dramatic, photographers seem to shift from subject to atmosphere. They point the camera at everything the light touches, but atmosphere cannot replace structure. Light supports subject. It never replaces it. So once the subject is chosen, randomness usually enters. Most photographers move while composing. They bring the camera up. They take small steps. They make small adjustments. They reframe. They shoot. The final stop was not a decision. It was coincidence or convenience. Position is the decision. So you can see here, this is where we originally stopped, but I didn't like how the edges were, because on that left edge, in the bottom left edge, it just felt incomplete. It was competing too much with the skyline. Now, in this photo, we see that the skyline is our hero. And then we take the photo and the shutter confirms it. So if we look at before and afters, again, you know, for sure before we have all these rocks, all this light from the sunset hitting the rocks. Now we can wait a little bit for the light to move, and then we have the after, but still we have way too many foreground. And that's not great, because the foreground isn't the subject here. The subject is the skyline. So we're going to go back to either something like this, where we zoom out a little bit. Even this is better than the after here. We fixed the light, we fixed the edges, but that's just taking up way too much of our photo. It's taking up half our photo. That's not what we want. We want the subject to be on the skyline. Or even better, we want the skyline to be more prevalent. This, we know that the skyline is the subject. So, that type of structure is structural power, where we focus on the subject first. The discipline is in lowering the camera. If something feels wrong, lower the camera. Move first, then raise it. If you compose while you're moving, you're guessing. And if you move before you're composing, you are deciding. So move first. Move before you compose, and then see what the shot looks like. And there are several ways to do that. You can use a wide lens, but when you use a wide lens, usually you have this wide lens illusion. Wide feels safe. It includes everything. But including everything usually means committing to nothing. So if you haven't picked your subject yet, it doesn't matter what type of lens you use, whether it's a telephoto, a wide, or a prime. If you don't have your subject, you're just going to have a picture of everything. Simplification comes from positioning, not zoom. So you want to try and avoid swapping lenses too often. When something feels off, a lot of photographers reach into their bag. Wider, longer, faster. But most of the time, the issue is not focal length, it's perspective. Changing lenses before changing position is often avoidance disguised as progress. So just because you change the lens doesn't mean that you're making progress. Constraint creates clarity. So before you change the lens, take a look at the scene, decide what you need to do. And then also, if you want an almost automatic way to improve your photos, even when the subject and position are correct, randomness often survives at the borders. Edges are where instability hides. The human eye is pulled toward bright contrast, high luminance, unresolved shapes. anything bright on the border competes instantly. So if you want to make sure that your photos have a great subject and everything lines up the way you want it to, take this 2-second test. Frame your shot, pause, scan the 4 corners, look up, look down, look left, look right, look at all those corners. Trace the borders, make sure that there's nothing in there that shouldn't be, and then shoot. If it touches the edge, it must deserve to be there. So if you think back on those pictures of half palms, I was okay with that because we can see that even though it's a half palm, it's a good frame. Half objects can sometimes feel accidental unless you do it on purpose. Clean borders create calmness. Now, I could have stepped back a little bit. I could have zoomed out a little bit or zoomed in a little bit and got rid of all those palms, but I didn't want to. If I would have moved to the right a little bit, I could have got rid of those palms altogether. But I thought the palms, as well as the rocks, added some layering, added something to the photo. So that's how you set up your photo. But process versus conditions. So most photographers, high confidence, 2 conditions. Good light, they feel strong, and flat light, they feel uncertain. That is dependency. Skill is repeatable. So remember, subject, position, edges. Those decisions do not depend on the golden hour. They depend on discipline. Before every shot, ask what your subject is. What wins first? Position, where do you need to stand to make sure that you have a good view of the subject, a good composition of the subject? And the edges, what's stealing attention from the subject? If there's something on the edges, you need to either move to get rid of it, zoom in, or set up the shot in a different way. If the frame feels chaotic, always check the edges. The best way you can improve your photos is by checking the edges first. If the subject feels weak, check your position. You might need to move. You might need to move closer. If nothing feels important, you never chose a subject. And that's where randomness comes in. It's not talent failure. It's a sequence failure. When you shoot in the wrong order, you create instability. When you decide in the right order, you create intention. And intention is replicable. So hierarchy is not an artistic preference. It's a structural necessity. Subject, position, edges, that's the system. That's the fix. So if you really want to improve your photos, remember that. I hope that helps. So this was one of the first times we've been in the Capture by CK studio. We're going to try and do a lot more lives from here instead of going out into the field. I hope you guys like it. I hope you enjoy the replay. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. I want to thank everybody. It's been 6 months since I started. And so far, we're up to 169 subscribers. You guys are so important. You're driving me to do better each and every day, and I'm going to continue to try and get you valuable content that you want and need. So if you have any questions, again, please comment in the section below, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Have a great one. Bye-bye.